started. We'll start with the I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That wasn't fair, though.
It'll take a couple weeks for the muscle memory to sink in that the flag has moved.
John hasn't been here, so.
He was up on the screen next to the flag, so he didn't know. All right, we are going to have non-public at the beginning of the meeting, but we'll do our payroll and accounts payable first so that Joyce can leave. So as usual, we review and sign our payroll and accounts payable for the period ending 3/23/24. We had payroll in the amount of $36,407.58. We had accounts payable in the amount of $53,928.76. We did not have any school or New Hampshire retirement payments.
I just need that orange folder. Thank you.
Yep.
Whoopsie.
I have it. I just gotta find it. Good job.
Did you sign that? You signed the rec checks?
Thank you.
You all set?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Have a nice evening.
Have a nice Easter.
Thanks.
Good night, Joyce.
I think we're going to do what we did last time, which is go to Karen's office for a brief non-public so that the public doesn't have to move. It should be fairly quick. I'll take a motion to go into non-public for personnel and legal, please.
Moved.
Second.
And we'll take a roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul? Letty?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we'll go into a brief non-public and we will be back with you momentarily.
Thank you.
I'm gonna dress up as the Easter Bunny and try and get all the homes I can. Or like at the house.
You could have been up the fire trying to do that.
My nephew just had a little one. He's about 3 or 4 months old. And this past weekend, they had something at the mall. This big, huge Easter Bunny. Grabbed him, screamed, oh man. And you'd think the parents would take him off his lap. No, they thought that was a blast. He just kept screaming, gets
Oh, the little, yeah, when you go to Santa Claus, the little's gonna.
yeah. I think he got a piece of chocolate, but I don't know.
So Tammy doesn't get it.
Yeah,
You-
so she's.
Not much, just trying to keep up with,
Possible.
you know, who's over it. Trying to figure out that.
That's the reason.
They're talking about, for Prescott,
Yeah,
the turf.
well, you were talking about,
At least they do it.
well, I'm talking about the buildings down the stretch.
Yeah, I know they like to do it.
The course pavement,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you said that was in back, or that's the whole.
No, seriously.
Pretty much the whole area in the back. The big building, both major parking lots on both sides of it are almost all course pavement. There is one strip of traditional pavement that grows around the very far outside.
Oh, okay, yeah, and I
I
think
was there once.
you can see it a little bit.
Yeah, really good difference.
Yeah, definitely.
On the
Yeah,
board.
that
Yeah,
makes
right.
total sense.
Specifically,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you need to find out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Together.
I was in the other day. Doctor, how's my doctor, so.
Okay.
Yeah, is, as is Dr. Keenan.
Well, your office is,
It's in the front building. Yeah.
is Fred still working?
Oh, yeah. 7 days a week.
So he really doesn't want to be.
He's my uncle.
No way.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah. Because my mom was a manual.
Oh, wow. The,
Right. Correct, yes.
years ago.
I won't step in the back, you'll see me coming.
10 feet.
Yeah, that's right on my,
Really, like,
That's the second.
Where you?
Came out.
This wasn't an Exeter,
No, no.
in Brentwood. Okay.
And,
I remember one in Exeter or something.
when Fred came out, it was a huge analysis. We didn't, and of course, we went to registration.
Yeah, it starts at
They
6,
couldn't
they go
dispute
into.
it. Right that chat. He was pretty good.
Kitchen, we just.
He's got a wealth of experience.
He really does.
Yeah.
It's probably, I think it was.
And it was in 97.
Probably won't get that.
So,
It's been a while.
yeah, 27 years.
He hasn't fired you, I know.
I bought the company from him.
Did you really? Wow, when did you do that?
Are you the one that does real estate? You do real estate from your home or something like that?
Yes, that's
So,
right.
no, I don't, I
Tell
don't.
people as it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I'm just
Sure.
trying to replace you, I guess, is the.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and sometimes you have like a fire going or something.
I hear ya, I hear ya. Oh,
Well,
this call, before they come back in here.
by far the hardest. Rye, Newcastle. It's a difficult.
Yeah.
You can do work in those towns, but it's not necessarily the town that's the problem. It's where Portsmouth, it's City Hall. They have a big thumb on everything.
Yeah, they do. When I had my business, they were very challenging.
What you got for business?
Just some shop, but right across from St. James, there's a little parcel of land there, four buildings, and I own that.
Oh, nice.
So I was trying to do some upgrading there.
St. James is where they just put in all the condos, correct? In Portsmouth?
If they have, I'm not.
Okay. It's on Route 1?
Route 1.
Yeah. Why, Wingets?
Yeah, that
That's
piece
a
of
classic.
property.
That's nice, yeah. Yeah, they tore that all down, St. James, and it's all condos now.
Sure, I don't want this place. Yeah, Hampton has some second. I grew up in. They probably knew me, back when I was far, I think.
Oh, yeah,
It's like a reproduction of the original we had in the office. Find it.
Yeah. It's embedded. There we go.
Get settled. All set?
Good.
Hooked back up? All right, we're gonna reconvene the meeting at 6:14.
To who?
Make-
Are you doing a presentation?
I will.
I make a motion, we seal the minutes.
Should we do a roll call for sealing?
No, just,
No. All in favor of sealing the non-public minutes?
I,
And I'm an aye, so we'll seal the minutes. I'll take a motion to approve this week's consent agenda.
moved.
Included in this week's consent agenda is the rec manifest, the treasurer's report, and building permits. Any questions or concerns about the consent agenda?
Public and non-public minutes from 3:19.
And public and non-public minutes from 3:19. 3:19, okay. All in favor?
I,
Letty's an aye, and I'm an aye, so we will approve those. Do we, since we have a guest, do we want to do that presentation first and move public comment down a bit?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Under part 5, discussion items, Rebecca Dunham on the pickpocket dam.
Yes.
Been removed.
Yes, because we do not have a firm legal opinion from legal counsel that we were waiting on for the finalization of the letter.
Okay. Are we not going to talk about it at all?
I think if people want to come up in public comment to talk about it, then we certainly can.
Okay. Just
Or we
wanted to
can
make
talk
that
about
clear.
it during conservation update. So yeah, there'll be at least 2 opportunities if folks want to talk about that.
Copy that, thank you.
Okay?
Do you want to start the Zoom if you're going to move to this part?
Do you want, maybe let's just do public comment first and then we'll just move down and we'll have that be ready. So we'll move on to public comment. We'll open public comment at 6:16. Anyone who's interested in making any comments, please raise your hand or come forward. Come on over, and then we'll have you sit right up here by the microphone. Remember to give your name and street address. Hello, hello.
Hello, Robert Span, 31 Peabody Drive. Since Rebecca's not going to be here, or that issue is not, I thought I'll give my comment now.
Okay.
First of all, I attended the Exeter River Advisory Committee meeting last week, and I can update you on that. The revised feasibility study will be coming out April 30, and it will contain an appendix with all the public comment and questions that they received with their responses if they deem it appropriate to respond. But the feasibility study itself, they gave kind of a presentation of what it might look like. It doesn't look like it's going to change very much. And I appreciate the time and consideration this board has given to this issue. And I understand that there have been questions raised about legal standing. But with all due respect, I think you're missing the point. You have the ability to make comments to the town of Exeter. They've solicited public comment. They've received public comment from people who are not abutters, from people who are not property owners. There's no issue of standing. They've asked for comment. So I think you have the ability to make comment. And in fact, at the River Committee meeting last week, one of the members of the committee said, how do we bring Brentwood into this process? And there was some discussion about how we haven't heard anything from Brentwood. The chairman of the select board, who's on the river committee, asked the town manager to make sure to copy the Brentwood select board on any notices in the future. He said he'd been
He has been, yeah.
sending things to Karen. But they want to make sure that it gets to the select board as well, so that's going to be the future. But I found it interesting in the grant application to NOAA that Exeter sent in October. They said the project team, which is the engineers and so forth, plans to hold up to 4 additional public meetings, including the town council, abutters, representatives from Brentwood, or other stakeholders. And they also said it is critical to continue to be transparent and provide opportunities for these town boards and committees and the general public to continue to ask questions. So they are expecting comments from Brentwood. So I think the issue of standing is really a separate issue. I mean, certainly that would be an issue if down the road you want to do any legal action. But at this point, for commenting, I don't think you need the go-ahead from council. And finally, I would point out that the Conservation Commission in Brentwood, by statute, has the duty to protect wetlands in Brentwood. And we know from the feasibility study that the removal of the dam will affect 3.5 miles of river in Brentwood and 70% of the wetlands that are created by the impoundment of the dam. And so I think there is a statutory obligation on the part of the Conservation Committee and this board to take part in this issue. And I've only lived in Brentwood for going on 7 years, but I can't imagine an environmental issue more significant than this one in its impact on Brentwood and on Brentwood's residents, on property owners, on recreation, on the economy. So I would urge this board to consider whatever comments or action you want to take, but I just want to point out, I don't think you should be held up by the issue of legal standing. I don't think that's the issue at this point.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else interested in public comment?
Can I just say for my part that
Yeah, please.
I do agree with Mr. Span's comments and his perspective, that I think that this is a serious enough issue that we really should, as the elected board representing the town, make a statement over to the select board and next.
Good.
Yeah, I would echo what John just said. I would agree that standing is something really for down the road, but, and I understand there was some concern about what Brentwood meant and how that's defined. I mean, I think we're, at least in general terms, a stakeholder, and I think we can define ourselves as that for purposes of any kind of letter or comments that we issue. So I do think that that's important.
Sorry, for clarity, I was referring, yes, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. For clarity on my own statement, I was referring to the fact that we are kind of property owners on the river, so.
Okay. We can certainly talk about this. I mean, it is on the agenda still, so we can talk about this further. But let's continue with public comment and see if anyone else is interested.
Come on up.
Anyone else interested? Come on up.
My name is Crystal Spann. I'm a resident of Peabody Drive. I would just like to say that should Brentwood lose the Exeter River, which will definitely happen if the dam is removed, that I think residents and voters will wonder what the Brentwood Select Board did to be involved in the process, or didn't do.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments for tonight? All right, seeing none, we will close public comment at 6:24. And we will move on to our discussion action items, the first of which is Lieutenant Doty to talk about the municipal building feasibility study. Come on up.
Hey everyone, how are you? So we've been meeting as a building committee for quite some time now, discussing pros, ways to incorporate a police and town hall municipal, overall municipal building. Kip, our code enforcement officer, has done a lot of feasibility work, site work. We're looking at the site up off the BRC, so Kip's expertise has really had a positive impact on potentially moving that project forward. So our next step is really putting thoughts and ideas on paper and doing more of a more just getting a concept designs. So we invited Dan, is it Tenney? Dan Tenney from Weston and Sampson to answer any questions that the public might have. To move forward, we are asking to sign with them, which is the cost of $10,000, which has already been put aside in that municipal building account, to move forward with, again, just getting a concept going, getting more ideas on paper, in addition to the feasibility study that has already been started.
He's just getting Chief on.
Okay. Chief's gonna come on Zoom.
Yes, just for this portion.
It's not waiting, so.
We'll just wait for him to, does the chief know to come on?
The whiteboard's over there if you want, maybe the thing that you put in between.
Yeah, it might be easier just to call him, I don't know.
Someday we'll have a Teams room.
We're getting there.
You are
Our
getting
AV
the
our AV is
free
moving.
Yeah,
version
municipal building.
of that update, free labor, so.
All right, so we'll just wait for him to pop on.
Are we waiting before we ask any questions, or?
Do we need to wait for the chief, or we'll just have him?
I think if you
Pop on when he's
got
ready.
questions for Mr. Tenney, I would say fire away at him.
Is that okay?
Yeah, is there a presentation or anything? I mean, we had a presentation at the actual building committee.
Yeah, he's more
From
just
this
Q&A.
group. Okay, okay. Would you like to come up to the board and we can see if folks have any questions or if the board has any questions for you?
Warmed it up for you.
So we have here a proposal for scope of services for a $10,000 master plan feasibility study here. Any introductory comments or anything you have for the
Well,
board?
Really, I think a lot of it's probably been covered in our original presentation. I don't know if you have copies of that. But just a quick overview is this is really a next step in a process that you've already started. I know you have some site plans developed. There was a study done by Norwich University a few years ago, that's kicked this off. So, we're very accustomed to working with an effort in the middle of the process. And this will be a next step to get you to a more precise definition of the scope of what you're trying to achieve, both for the immediate future and for the foreseeable growth and change in both the police department and town hall requirements. And to set up kind of not only the site plan, concept building plans that were mentioned earlier, but to give you a reality check as to what the cost is likely to be. we are unfortunately very, very familiar with the construction market, and it has been a roller coaster over the past 4 years, in particular with the pandemic. I would say it's stabilized a little bit, but it hasn't gotten any cheaper. So a lot of what I think we can do is help you to understand the scope of what this may represent and how to approach funding it and, presenting it and selling it constructively to the community. So that's a lot of what we do every day, so.
And the draw for Weston and Sampson is it's described as a multidisciplinary company. So giving them the project, it's kind of everything under one roof. They don't have to reach out to another company for additional information, additional site plan or anything like that.
Right, we are a multidisciplinary company. We're mostly in New England, but we have some expansion down the East Coast. But the good thing is that I was just saying earlier that in the course of the day I might work with people, professionals in our offices from 6 or 7 different locations, and we all collaborate and we all are familiar with working with each other. So all the disciplines: civil engineering, permitting, geotechnical engineering, structural engineering, architects. I'm an architect, I confess. Mechanical, plumbing, engineers, environmental engineers. We've got the whole range, and that makes our work very efficient and I hope seamless for you as a reliable set of skills that we can offer.
The intention is to be sort of abbreviated project that takes 60 to 90-day window.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Right. And the end result will be an updated snapshot of your objectives, some feasibility feedback on the site itself, and really a roadmap going forward. What do you do next? Because this is one step in a longer process. We understand that.
Board members with questions?
On the word abbreviated caught my attention. Is there going to have to be a more fulsome feasibility study after this, or is this kind of a?
I would say there will definitely be detail that needs to be developed further.
Could you just give us an idea of what that?
Well, what that would mean would be that I think through the process that we've outlined in our proposal, we can give you a good, what I will call a working basis of design for the project, which is going to describe the size of the building, the characteristics of it, the placement on the site elements such as parking, access roads, septic system, water, etc., that are going to be required to support it. We'll know how big it is. We'll probably have some recommendations of what type of construction would be most appropriate, and all that will come with with a cost projection. Now that cost projection will be based on historic data that we have. It won't be a full, detailed third-party cost estimate. I should have qualified it earlier. The one thing that we don't do in-house is cost estimating. We will give you a budget based on historic information, but when it comes time to get a real working cost estimate that you're going to use to go get your funding, we put that out in a third-party responsibility. It works better that way. We feel better. We sleep better. The cost estimator doesn't sleep well, but that's very deliberate. We found that works better. So by abbreviated, I think what it means is that we can't go that far into design. We just won't have the resources within that budget to do so. But we'll give you a good and reliable basis on which to proceed. So it's not going to be, you're not going to go back and have to reinvent the wheel. It'll be, you'll have more design work to do. There may be investigations of the site that we would recommend. I know there've been some test holes, some test pits done. Given the size and type of building, it's unlikely that soils would be a major issue, but that remains to be seen. We don't want to guarantee that, and so there will be part of our work product for this study will be to give you a list of next steps, and that might be final design, or the next step in design might be a detailed cost estimate, might be some geotechnical work, whatever. We don't know yet.
Sure, thank you.
Other board members with questions? Paul?
So, I mean, I've read through the scope of service. Is this, so it's a flat cost? Is there like a certain number of man hours estimated or person hours estimated to be politically appropriate?
We have, person hours, yeah, we call it level of effort, I guess is what it is. We've developed that internally, kind of as a kind of seat of the pants sense of what it's gonna take to do. We're not gonna, we would bill it to you on a basis of the percentage of work done each month. This will be a fairly short run, so that'll be just a few increments. We will work within that budget. We're not gonna bill you hourly. We have a little bit of flexibility within our own kind of allocation of resources and time to work with. But, you know, we're confident that we can give you what we offer in that proposal for that fee. We'd like to have more, but, you know.
Is that the intent? I mean, ultimately?
Well, we would hope that, you know, should this effort be successful, that we would continue and, you know, propose a continuing scope of work as we identify it in the course of the study. You know, what the next step would be and what the cost would be, you know, not for necessarily for construction, but for the next step in the development of the project.
So do you have some estimate as to the person hours?
We do internally, I don't have it with me, but, you know, we could give you an idea of that. It would be just an idea because these things tend to define themselves as you get into them, because we haven't worked with you yet. We know you've got, you know, a fair amount of good information already, you know, accumulated for the project. So we've got to get our heads around that, talk to you, see how that all is going to be, you know, what it's going to take for us to take that information and turn it into something useful that you can move forward with. So that's a long-winded way of saying I don't really know.
Well, yeah, and we're just trying to get some sort of, you know, my head wrapped around and get some sort of idea of how the figure, you know, was derived.
Let me do this. Let me talk with Mike Richard, who prepared that, and you know, he and I work together every day, except he's in New York tonight, so he couldn't be here. What I think might be useful would be for us to let you know what you're going to see in terms of our presence here, talking with you, looking at the site, you know, and presenting our work as we go along. What happens in the back room is a little bit less predictable, but I think a lot of the effort that, you know, you want to know about is, you know, who are you going to see and when, you know, and what's the kind of obvious value that we're going to give you. So we will certainly, you know, give you some projections of the level of effort as we go forward, for sure.
Letty or Andy, any questions? Chief, are you on with us?
Star 6.
Do you have any comments for the board?
No, I don't have anything for the board. I think you did a good job of summarizing it. I think the important thing to understand is we can't jump ahead to those fun steps until we get through all this stuff with these folks. So what they're doing now is just the necessary to get to the next step.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just add one thing. I may have mentioned it before. I like to present, kind of characterize what we're going to give you as a basis of design. And what that means is, you know, what really, if you were to have to describe this project to someone, what is it? You know, how big a building is it? What's inside? You know, what are the functional requirements? What are the site constraints? What are the timeline requirements for it? And there may be other elements to that basis of design, which might be, what are you going to do with this building once you've built the new one? You know, and that's part of the town's consideration. There may be some value there that feeds into the budget one way or another. So it's a roadmap, which includes some initial design, but most importantly, the programming that says, this is what we understand the needs for this facility are going to be.
And of course, your team is going to be engaged with the building committee or
Absolutely.
throughout this process.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of our job is to ask questions and most importantly to listen, you know, and then ask another question to make sure we get it right. So we will appear nosy at times, but that's our nature,
That's
and
the
that's our
idea.
job.
Yeah.
Would you be able to send that presentation around? Because I know Jen and I saw it, but
Sure,
the
sure.
others might find that useful as well.
I will,
Yeah.
absolutely. If someone will make sure I have the right address, I will email it and
Oh, they can run.
have it around. I have it out in the car, but it's on a computer that I just got, and it's a new one that has only one USB plug on it. I'm not quite sure how to work around it, so.
Well, I can run any copies of that.
Yeah. This one is all marked up, so.
We'll get it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's okay.
I've got the actual PowerPoint, and I can send that to you.
Okay. And the building committee, when we had that original presentation and discussed this, did have a vote to move forward with this project and to have it come to this board for approval. So that group, which Letty and I are both on, has already seen the presentation and talked about it as a group and voted to move forward contingent on the warrant passing a town meeting to relabel the CRF, which was successful. So that step had already taken place. I think it was like 2-3 weeks ago when we had our last meeting.
I think it was
A couple weeks, it was like a week or so
the
before
day
town
of-
meeting.
voting or something. It was like a weird day.
Yeah, it was just like a little bit before town meeting.
So you're looking for a motion?
I would.
I just have a question that
Yes,
has
please.
nothing to do with Weston and Sampson, but a project this size, the town's historically got more than one bid.
Yeah, Chief, do you want to talk to
Or
that?
feasibility?
For the amount of money we're spending, I mean, even your road, we got 2 or 3 different people.
That was for a
But
$90,000
that was 90
road.
grand, this is 10.
Didn't want to say the price before we decided if we were gonna go with the,
I can speak to that if you let me. I think I went based on Eric Kelly and Jared's recommendation that these guys were one of the best in the area. And that's kind of what we were going for, is the best in the area, not so much, cost effective. Usually you do those bids later on in the process, from my understanding. That's why we did separate bids for this. And again, I asked those two, once we did get the price on the size, is this fair in your experience? And they said that the price was more than fair. So that's why we did not go out for extras.
I'm sorry, Chief, who said the price was more than fair?
That would be Eric Kelly, who's on the building committee with an engineering background, and Officer Brent Ward, who's also on the committee, who, as you know, also has an engineering background, and is actually, both of those individuals have worked with Sampson Weston as well in their professional capacities in the past.
Thank you for your comments. Is that satisfactory
Yes.
response for you?
Other than the statement of the best and not financially frugal.
Is there a need to do this motion today? Because it would be helpful for me just to get that additional information that you were referencing. And
I mean, I'm comfortable doing it today.
I think the thought was that the chief has expressed over the past year or so that his preferred timeline would be to get as much of this work done during 2024 so that there is a polished set of options to present to the public at town meeting in 2025. So I think it's not that there's a super time urgency, but sort of a desire to get things moving so that we have all the i's dotted and t's crossed to go in front of the voters next March.
The feasibility is like, so I've been involved in these types of like building feasibility studies before, just from my very limited experience. Like this is the super early part where we don't, I don't wanna see us get hung up over minute details at this point because the details are coming. I'm very confident about.
I don't want to get hung up. I'm just thinking, to see the information, see the presentation, which I haven't, and then, take a vote next week. That's why I'm saying, is there any urgency per se?
I think, if that's what the board wants to do, we certainly can bump it a week. I think at this point, the building committee has already, asked us to approve it, so they're in favor of it. And so it really depends to, the majority of this board, if people are comfortable tonight or if they want any additional information before making a decision.
just doing my due diligence, that's
Yeah,
all.
yeah, I get it. Letty,
Oh.
do you feel strongly about voting tonight versus,
I mean, I've
Holding on.
already seen the presentation, so yeah, I feel comfortable with voting tonight.
Andy, do you feel strongly about pushing it off versus taking a vote tonight?
I have no opinion on that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract
And
for
to,
Weston Sampson to conduct the abbreviated feasibility study.
and to expend from the capital reserve fund.
Expend the funds from the CRF.
There's a motion from John, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye, all opposed? Any abstentions?
Yep.
Okay,
Andy, are you in favor?
Yeah, I voted aye.
yep, he was an aye. 4 ayes and 1 abstain. All right,
And
so we will,
just to explain for the public, I mean, not because I don't think it's a good idea, I think it's a really good idea, but again, for purposes of information.
Sure.
Due
yeah,
diligence.
absolutely, they can get you that,
And regardless, if you
Yeah.
can still get me the
I will,
information. that would
absolutely,
be
not a
great.
problem, and
Okay,
we'll get that along, and the presentation itself.
yeah.
Oh, lovely, will do,
great.
thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and for being
Okay.
here tonight,
All right,
and we look forward to seeing where this goes.
well, we do too, so,
Great.
because we don't know yet.
All right, we'll find out.
Great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the board, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Do we have anything else on the agenda for police?
No.
Don't believe so, nope.
Thanks, folks, have a great night.
Thank you, have a good night. All right, next on the action items, we have a follow-up item from last week, which is the junkyard permit for the Webb property. And some questions had come up last week just about how that permit works, and because the property is up for sale, what the implications might be if that property is sold. And there was some communication with Glenn. Karen, I don't know if you want to speak to Glenn's opinion about those issues.
Paul had sent an email to Glenn, and so he was just clarifying what is a non-conforming use of record. So the junkyard permit is associated with an individual or a business name. The use of the land as a junkyard is a legally existing non-conforming use and is not changed by property ownership. So he says the only reason for the permit to cease to be appropriate is if the use of the land changed in some substantial way, such as enlarging or being used in a way different than what the permit provides. So his understanding is that the property has been issued for many years and that he is unaware of any change of use. And like I said last week, there's been no issues of compliance or any complaints that have been filed against this property.
I think you said also that the first sentence, the actual permit is associated with an individual.
Right, so does that answer your question about
It
if there
does.
were to be a sale, they'd have to come back, the new owner would have to come back through the process?
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
and that makes me feel comfortable.
Okay. Would you like to come up to the table? Again, I know that's just the question that had come up in terms of trying for us to understand, because we do understand that the property is for sale
Yes,
at this point.
I've been involved with the property for 60 years as a junkyard. I'm ready to retire,
Good for you. 60 years sounds like a good point to retire.
but I need to sell. And my agent is Nancy Merrill, no, Lynn Merrill, excuse me. She lives in Kingston, you probably all know of her. And she has a packet for anybody that comes to view the junkyard. And it does not include any guarantees that they will be able to junk. It just states that we have a permit and that they will have to go before the select people to establish their right to have a junkyard.
Gotcha. Have you been actively operating the junkyard, or just things that have been there previously? Have you added new material to it over the recent years, or has it just been kind of at a status quo?
I've been in charge for 2 years. Bob died 2 years ago. We're cleaning up.
Okay.
He left a lot of junk. I've sent 4 loads of tires.
Oh, so you've actually had
At
things
cost.
going off the
Oh,
property?
yes, we've
Okay.
been cleaning all along. I had somebody come in and actually remove the junk. And I've spent a good amount of money. $5,000 a load for tires, cost me. They don't take them for nothing. And I've sent 4 loads out. I've probably 1 more load to send in tires, and I have trash to get rid of, and I also have some scrap metal to send. So
Gotcha,
it's basically sending. I have no help.
gotcha. So you're actually kind of winding down, it sounds like, the junkyard.
Well, I'm cleaning it up so somebody who buys it can bring in their own machinery and stuff. There is some machinery that's still there. The buildings are still there. I'm trying to conform as best I can. So, do you have any other concerns?
Do board members have any questions for Ms. Webb?
Nope.
I think that was our main question, just to understand what the current status was and what the implications would be of a sale. And it sounds like we have a better understanding of that now.
Yep, no, Lynn has told anybody that's interested that they must come to the selectmen to find out what they can do.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, wonderful.
Can you sign the license for me so I can get to the state?
And anyone on the board have any questions or concerns? If
No,
not-
I think between, Glenn's response and,
Yep.
Yep.
And we appreciate you coming out here and being
Well, I
here.
appreciate you
Yeah.
being interested, thank you.
So
I'll make a
I'll
motion.
take a motion.
Second.
All in favor of signing the license to operate and maintain the motor vehicle junkyard?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we'll sign right here. And do I need to sign this one? This is the state one?
Yes.
And there was another permit, my water permit.
Yep, that's already, they approved that last
That
week.
one already got approved. Yep, you are all set on that one. That's the one that needs everybody, this one. And I wish you the best of luck with your sale and your retirement.
Thank you.
Sounds like you richly deserve it.
I've been a resident for 60 years,
Wow, good for you.
yeah, long time.
Yeah. All right, so you should be all set after Letty signs that.
Should I give this to her?
I'm gonna photocopy it and then I'm gonna give it to Leslie, so that she doesn't have to come back tomorrow and pick them up.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate your time, thank you.
thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to our next discussion action item, which is Andy Gray from Rec to talk about a couple different topics, the MOA for the rec ban, the impact fee request, and the statements of interest for the rec board. Hi, good evening.
Good evening, thank you for having me as always.
All right, and so this is a follow-up on our initial conversations about letting Kingston use our rec van, correct?
Yes, and since we last met, I implemented some of those suggestions regarding that it was a summer camp only that would be going to the beach over the summertime. We implemented if the van were to break down in the middle of a Kingston trip, that they would be financially responsible for making sure that the van is towed back to Brentwood. And then any other expenses will be evaluated from there. And that they'll pay a minimum $50 stipend per trip. And then any trip that goes beyond 50 miles will be the IRS standard mileage rate. Anything beyond that stipend there.
Okay.
And I believe that was it, but as always, if there is something else that we need to include in this, it's always a big.
I think, did you end up kind of getting it so that it's it's gonna be the two things?
Yeah, so they have to agree to this every single year. This is a year-to-year
Yeah.
thing. Then the MOA, and then I do have a copy of the rec director over there's driver's record as well.
Oh, right.
Which came back as clean. But yes, clean record, MOA, and then the year-to-year contract.
Questions from any board members about this finalized version?
Can we change language still or not yet? Or
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Just the part where it says, towing the van back to Brentwood if the van were to break down in the middle of a trip, I would just say if it's in their possession. Right, like. what
Or
if it's
while
an-
Kingston is using it
What if it's an
or something.
unscheduled trip? Like, I just wanna make sure that it's basically anytime they have it.
Okay,
That's
so
their
Kingston
responsibility.
possession.
That makes sense, just to kind
Yeah.
of clarify, if they're driving it, it's their responsibility to get it back
Yes.
here. Any other questions or comments about this?
Yeah, the memorandum of agreement, Andy, is that something that was that already executed, or is that something we're still discussing?
Nothing has been agreed to or signed.
Oh,
I,
okay.
I did not want him to, or Kingston, to put any pen to paper unless I had the full backing of the rec board, but also the select board.
So,
So-
I thought maybe we had discussed, and I could be completely forgetting, because that's possible too, some sort of like indemnity language?
You had mentioned that this is the contract that Primex would recommend moving forward with.
This actually came from Primex,
Yes,
right?
it
Yeah,
did.
which it covers both Brentwood and Kingston.
Correct.
I don't know if it helps, but when he sent me one, it was the same one, cause they use Primex as well.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's-
if I was drafting it, it would just be an extra sentence or two that would just have, some indemnification language in there. I mean, I could propose that if people are interested.
So would this MOA be filled out, signed every time they use it?
Once a year, I think would be the
Mhm.
intent.
I think, I mean, given that this came from our insurer and was recommended by them, I don't
Well, the
know.
way this MOA is written, that it's per use.
So have this filled out and
The
signed by
borrower's
them
use
per
of the vehicle
usage.
begins blank and ends and return the vehicle on blank. So this is a per use
Per usage agreement.
MOA.
I'm a little surprised that there's no indemnity here too.
Yeah, I kind of wonder
a
why
little weird.
Primex wouldn't have put that on here. Do you have any thoughts, or was that
Probably
mentioned?
because they're the,
Because it doesn't matter to them.
yeah, sorry.
Both
They're
parties.
holding the bag either
Both
way.
parties, right? It's both sides, right.
Yeah, but I mean, it does matter to us.
So then contingent on that being added, are you
So what is
comfortable
the
with all of the other
language?
It does
language?
seem like we should change the time frame as well, because it doesn't really make sense for this to be filled out every single time. So the time maybe should be for a period of,
Is there a, I'm signing it in, signing it out type of a,
There will
Should
be.
be.
I mean, they have to request every usage and I have to approve
in,
every usage.
in writing request?
oh, so maybe you
Yes.
do want this to be every use.
Yeah.
So must request Brentwood Rec for any van uses in writing maybe,
Yes,
on your,
in writing.
Well, and we'd have to log the mileage, because if we're gonna be charging them a minimum stipend and then per mile fee, we'd have to charge their beginning and then mileage every
Yep.
time.
Mhm.
So that should be on the MOA.
Can I, is it okay with everyone if I send like a sentence that just
Yeah,
provides
just
for
see if, and
indemnification?
just make
What is
sure
the
Primex
sentence?
is good with it.
What's
What,
the sentence?
what would you say?
Just basically, it would be indemnification language, saying that upon, if they were involved in any kind of, incident for which they, were negligent, that they would make sure that we were indemnified for that loss.
Sounds reasonable.
For any, or any not caused by our failure to maintain the vehicle?
Yeah, that wouldn't be our responsibility, but was theirs, that they would otherwise indemnify us. I don't want to be
Right.
liable as, just merely as an owner of the vehicle, so we want to make sure that we have that indemnification.
Is that standard? If somebody borrows my car and crashes into something, I'm liable?
Well, you could be, but
Right,
you're also not worth what the town of Brentwood is
right.
worth.
how do you know?
Accurate.
You could be liable if you were negligent in your lending of the vehicle, so,
I
yes.
see.
And just to clarify, do we feel that it makes sense that this MOA would be signed every single time they used it?
Mhm.
Yes, okay, so that doesn't need to be changed then.
As long as it gets signed every time, that just seems a little onerous, as opposed to just having a blanket agreement.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really sure why we would need to sign an agreement every single time if we have a yearly agreement with them. Do you see a reason why we would need to do it over and over?
I think that's just standard when you borrow a vehicle, you
Yeah, sure.
sign it out and sign it back in and.
I mean, I don't
But
think
can
it's
you
an
sign it
issue
out
to
and sign it
make
back
it as
in
a part
without
of the
doing-
process, especially if we're just trying to, for liability reasons, just trying to make sure that we're not gonna be held
I would
liable.
have no problem putting it all on one page and then having like a
A
log.
log.
Right.
Or,
Sign in,
Mileage,
But the agreement should be applicable to
and then
every
initials
time
for
they
right,
you and
did
them.
it.
Okay.
good for a year.
It seems to me like that would make sense to make it good for a year rather than have to sign the legal document every single time.
I can forward some language to you, Karen.
Yeah, I was just looking to see if I had a template of some language that would be applicable.
I would assume Primex would be okay with us adding something like that. Okay, so what I'm hearing from the board is the need to do some official logging of mileage, the need to add some indemnification language, and potentially to change the time frame to be yearly instead of each episode with more of like a log. Any other additional changes we
I
want to
think
see?
it all could be on one.
Compress it
like,
all together.
Instead of two separate documents, it could all live
In one.
together.
That's true.
Yeah, it seems
Heard
like
that
it
as
probably
well.
could merge it together somehow,
'Cause that is confusing.
than having these sort of
otherwise.
double signed.
Yeah.
Would you be okay with trying to kind of work with Andy to get these kind of merged into one official legal document? Okay, is that okay with you?
Works for me.
Okay. Okay, so we will get the final version, and then we will move ahead with that.
Perfect.
When is the first time they need it? Have they told you?
No,
Okay.
Okay, so there's no urgent time
nope.
pressure you're feeling? Okay, so we'll just get it cleaned up a little bit, and then.
I mean, I would like to have some form of approval prior to summer, because I don't wanna have this drag out and be like, so that beach, right? You know?
Oh, yeah, right.
we'll make sure.
Well, because
Yeah.
one of the agreements is they can't actually use the van in the summer, correct?
That's one of the stipulations, they cannot use it during the summertime. I actually spoke with them too, like, you can always ask, but
Yeah,
the answer for the
It's
most
not
part is always gonna be
guaranteed,
no, yeah.
so we may wanna change, it says no van usage, it might just be like, you know,
Usage is not
on your
yearly.
case by case basis
Mhm.
or something, okay. Okay, sounds good, so we will follow up on that at a future meeting. And then next you have some impact fee requests.
Yes, I was hoping my cricket coach was gonna be here. Even though we run a very successful cricket is over my head a little bit here. So, I'm making a request of $4,284.97 towards 2 training mats and 1 pitching machine. So for 3 pieces of equipment for our cricket program. Reason for the request is our cricket program is growing, and due to rec not wanting to do any permanent landscaping or costs for projects to have an actual cricket pitch or field, some of this training equipment is required in order to, train the kids properly when it comes to playing the sport of cricket. I don't normally do this, but I did send a picture. This is the exact training mat of one of the mats that we're requesting. It's huge. You literally just roll it out almost like you would with a golf green almost, and they would practice and train right on that. And they
On
would
top of
store
the grass?
on top of the grass, exactly. I'm not willing to. I mean, we're already losing a diamond to the field there, to the road. I mean, I'm not really interested in digging into fresh green grass where we play soccer and flag football games where our participation level at those programs are higher. Now, with that said, this is a growing program. This is a niche, but it did put Brentwood on the map, made New Hampshire Chronicles over the summertime and whatnot. So it is a good program. A lot of people are traveling to Brentwood, and our name is getting out there. But in order to appropriately support this program, this equipment is now needed due to the growth.
Do you know approximately how many folks have been involved in that cricket program? It sounds like it's growing significantly.
Yeah, so the first year we did it, I mean, we had maybe a dozen kids, and last year we had about 30 kids. We were able to also also run an 8-week summer session as well, where we had about 15 to 16 kids participating in that.
Could they contribute, is there like a fee that they have to pay?
So this is recognized as a rec program offering a sport. So we collect all 100% of the registration fees, and then we turn around and use that to cover expenses.
What does the registration fee look like for?
$75, which comparing to our other sports that we offer, it's actually one of our more expensive registrations. Youth basketball is our most expensive at $85 per player from grades 3 or higher.
So assuming you had the same participation, you're looking at offsetting this equipment that we'll have for many years and paying for it in 2.
Yes, for sure. And there was one question I was hoping to get answered, but I'm pretty sure we might even be able to use the pitching machine for baseball, hopefully, which is something that we don't even have for that program. But also the training mats themselves, while they are cricket pitches, they can be used for other programs and
Is there
events as well.
electricity over there?
We have it through the garage there. So I did tell the coach that while it's needed, he would have to be responsible for figuring out how he would to operate that.
And the idea is that this would come out of rec impact fees?
Yes, and the other info in here, these are similar equipment at similar price ranges. The ones I highlighted specifically are the ones I reviewed, whether it's from what I would call a reputable vendor and or just knowing the equipment itself. This was my recommendations based off of the list he gave me. The one thing that, obviously we would love to have all 3 items approved, but I know the 2 pitching mats, or the 2 pitch mats, I should say, were definitely what he stressed to me the most, as was hoping to have for the program, was the 2 mats that look like this.
If the pitching machine works for baseball too, that seems like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have a batting cage, but we don't have a
Right.
we don't have a pitching machine in there.
Can we, do you mind, can we, answer that question if it can be used for both? Cause I agree with you, Paul,
Well,
if it's,
I see there's another one listed that's more expensive. If the one that you picked isn't usable for baseball, but the
Yeah.
other one is, then that might also make it worth switching the
Totally.
model.
Right.
If the more expensive one is definitely a baseball, or can also pitch out baseballs, then I would be more in favor of that.
Yeah.
I highlighted this one specifically because, again, it's one thing if it only does cricket, but I just thought the other one was a little expensive.
But I think what you're hearing from the board.
But
is
if we can use it for both,
for multiple
absolutely,
sports, that
absolutely.
we might be willing to approve a more expensive product.
Absolutely.
Does the board want to consider approving the mats and holding on the pitching machine, or just hold and have Andy come back to us with more information?
I would be in favor of approving the mats and then, getting the answer to the pitching machine, and I can deliver. We have a meeting this
Tomorrow.
week?
Tomorrow. Yep.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I can bring that answer to the board
Next week.
and
I make a motion that we approve up to $3,300 for the 2 mats out of the
Rec
revolving
revolving
fund.
fund.
Thank you.
Is it
Not
the
revolving
No,
fund,
the
I'm sorry.
impact.
The
The
rec
rec
impact.
impact fees.
Yeah, we want impact fees, no revolving.
Well, can you make a motion to approve the 4280,497 contingent on the pitching machine being able to be used for baseball? Or just the mats, if it's not?
We could do it.
Yeah.
Do you want to
And then
amend
you
your
could
motion?
just confirm the answer
I
next
wasn't,
week.
yeah, like, I'm not opposed to getting it if it's just for cricket, it's just I thought that we might wanna,
Right,
we
upscale it.
might wanna discuss
Yeah.
that further. I'm 100% behind that cricket mats.
Yep.
That was where I was coming from.
I think if we separate it, it'll be easier next time to approve just whichever amount we decide on for
Sure.
whichever pitching machine.
You said
I
3,300?
said 3,300.
And do we have sufficient funds in the impact fees for rec? Yes? Okay, great. And this would be appropriate because it's based on growth and population and growth and activities. Okay, so we have a motion to approve up to 3,300 out of impact fees for the cricket, maps times, I guess it's times 2. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Any opposed? No. All right, so you're good for your mats, and then we'll just find out on the pitching machine with a definite preference from the board to try to find one that could be multi-use.
Perfect.
Great, perfect, thank you. The last thing we have for you is the statements of interest for, I believe it's 1 full-time member, correct?
Correct.
1 non-alternate member, okay, on the rec committee, and we have 3 candidates. And as we've often done, we invite the candidates to be here. I see at least 1,
All 3 are here.
2, and 3. So we have all 3. So we'll probably have each candidate come up briefly and just kind of give us a little piece of their mind about why they're interested in being on the rec board, and then we will make an appointment. So who'd like to come up first? Anyone? Come on
Come
up.
on down.
Come on down, the price is right. All right. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. So I'm Kelly Risner Day. I live at 8 Road Circle. So when I found out that there was an opening on the rec board, I've been living here in town with my family for, gosh, almost 20 years. My husband and I have raised 3 children here together, mostly grown up at this point. I've been involved with a lot of different activities in the town for a long, long time. The father-daughter dance in town, that started with the playground committee many, many years ago. So it started there, and I've just been involved with that for a very, very long time. So I looked at this as an opportunity to, serve my community even further. And I would just love the opportunity to be considered for that. Yeah, thank you.
Any board members have any questions?
Any questions?
For Kelly?
Have you had a chance to go to some of the meetings and?
Yes, I have a couple of different times, over the past couple of years, so yes, I have. Yeah, so looking forward to serving if I'm the one that's selected, so.
Okay.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you for your
All right,
willingness to
yeah,
volunteer.
thank you.
All right, who's next? Ryan? Come on down. You can be in the spotlight.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Brian Trout, over at 8 Bayhey, Brentwood. And some of the extent of my experience with Brentwood Rec Sports is having coached for a couple of seasons now on youth girls basketball, as well as having a kid that's very active in playing sports year-round here. When I heard that the position came up for the opportunity for me to get more involved with the community, serve the community, I felt like it was something I wanted to jump at. I played sports my entire life, and I've also had the opportunity to work sort of side by side with Andy and a few others with even when you get involved with coaching in we're in not just the Brentwood community, but within other communities, just ensuring that there's fair play, that there's conflict resolution, or how are you dealing with problems or challenges within one community or another, or anything right down to refereeing of games in sports, and ensuring that there's level playing fields. And the focus is always on the opportunities for these kids and for the betterment of the kiddos. So I feel like I've been on the front lines with that here very recently, and looking forward to the opportunity that I may have to be able to further impact here in our community.
Great. Any board members have any questions for Ryan?
You said you coached what?
Third and fourth grade
third basketball.
girls basketball.
All right, thank you.
Have you gone to committee meetings, and do you have a thought in terms of like where the, rec committee, what the goals would be or anything like that?
I've spoken outside of the meetings themselves with Andy and others, but I've not attended any. But from what I understand, it's within the realm of the understanding and the capability that I'd have to be able to be a serviceable member of that board.
Thanks for offering.
Great. Thank you. All right, last, Liz Faria, come on up.
So, as I said in my statement of interest, this is my 3rd time applying for the Recreation Commission, so I guess I'm interested in this position. I did read their mission and I'm committed to their mission of providing our community with a variety of opportunities for safe, memorable, and quality activities for all ages, interests, and abilities. And to answer Paul's question, I have attended several meetings over the past couple of years, and many of the meetings before recently didn't happen because there was no quorum. So I originally got involved because there were other people who were not involved. But I also attend the senior luncheons pretty regularly, at least every other. I've suggested several new or expanded opportunities for rec. One of them is grandparents, with their many grandparents take care of their grandchildren, and I thought it would be fun to get them together once a month, either with the children or without, to just discuss. And I thought that would be a way to connect the older people in Three Ponds and the other senior involvement areas, senior housing with the older residents that aren't in senior housing, because I think that's a real lack of connection there, and I would really like to see that. The other thing I'm really interested in is the physical building. We have a physical building. Luckily, recently, we've gotten some things that have been on sort of the back burner for a long, long time. Great to see the ramp, great to see the steps, the floor looks nice. I do think, the windows, and I see that you are looking at these things now, that the windows are a priority, and, maybe the stove, but certainly AC, AC and heating really needs to be top notch. And I feel like if the building is in better shape in those ways, then we should also be able to rent it out much more than we rent it out. I'm not sure whether you have the amounts for last year, how many times it was rented out, but usually when I see those numbers, they're pretty low. And certainly it should be at least once a weekend day, of all year long, and for big weekends, it should be, most weekend days. So it should be, I really feel like it should be rented out 75 or 80 days a year. And it will be if it's in good shape. So my priority is, and I've also worked with children of every age. I've coached way back, a soccer group of girls. I have 4 kids and a stepson, and I've worked with kids all my adult life, and even before I've worked with children. So I've worked with kids of every age, so I have a lot of knowledge about children. Now being a senior, I have a fair amount of knowledge about seniors. So I would also there's a couple other things I would be thinking of, which is maybe intergenerational, where the younger, teenagers, help seniors with computers, or, FaceTiming, or they're putting on the glass thing on top of the phone, like we have to get our kids to, okay? So there's a lot of things that the young and the old could be, I would like to do an intergenerational as well, so that's where I am.
Any board members have questions for Liz?
Yes, I attend meetings.
She already pre-answered your question,
She knew
so
what you were gonna ask.
any other questions for Liz? All right, thank you.
Okay.
We always appreciate so much when residents step up
I mean,
for
she could've.
these highly paid positions on our volunteer boards. Any discussion on the board about who might be best for this current opening? We clearly have some good candidates here. Thoughts or comments from the board?
We do, as the rec commission rep for the select board, great candidates. I'm personally particularly excited about Ryan's application, specifically because he currently, actively, recently is involved in coaching. I think that's a really important thing that we need to get more folks doing in town, and so to see someone who is kind of actively doing that, involved in the kind of the athletic community here in town, not only historically but now, it makes me feel pretty excited to have someone like that pursuing a position on the rec board.
I'm a little biased because Ryan's my neighbor, so I know him personally, and we've talked about his interest in the rec. And also relatively new to town, which I think can be beneficial. We have some folks who've lived here a long time, and then some folks new to town, and I think there's benefits to both of those perspectives on our boards. So thanks for those comments. Other comments?
Does the rec commission have an opinion?
I believe there was a discussion.
Yes, the rec commission voted to nominate Kelly first as,
Okay.
as number one in the
Okay. Great. Other comments from the board? Paul?
I'm just gonna go out on a limb here. I feel, you know, where Liz has a lot of good ideas and has applied 3 times. I feel like, given this being a volunteer board, it's something that she should, get the nod for. Having said that, thank you, everyone. Really
Yeah,
appreciate
it's very
it.
generous to step
Of,
up.
of the time, and any one of you, can be doing this, and it puts us in I feel in a horrible position to have to make, these kinds of choices ultimately, so.
It's a good problem to have, that multiple people want to step up and help. Okay. Other comments? Betty or Andy, other comments? No? If anyone would like to make any motions, we could take some votes.
I'll make a motion to have Brian Trout join the rec commission.
We have a motion for Ryan. Any seconds?
Just a discussion on that. Why would we go against our commission's thought?
Since we have to discuss this in public, you guys are related, yeah?
Can I come up and speak to that? Yeah, can I speak to that as
No,
well as the
no,
chair?
not right now, but
Yeah.
that is a fact.
Yep.
I think the diversity of opinions, and I don't love that idea that we have relatives serving on the same commission, and that's my.
I had to sit on the select board with my mother-in-law.
That is true.
Yeah, but
You also gotta let them.
I was just saying, feeling the pain.
That's maybe different than
That would be
siblings.
asking for pain.
That might be a little different relationship than siblings.
But look, I think this is an advisory committee. We're looking for advice and guidance, right? And so that's one of the ways that, from my personal perspective, we get that, is by having a diversity of opinions that are serving on that board. And Ryan, for several different reasons, brings a very specific, different perspective to that board, which I think is pretty valuable. That's, I'm speaking for myself, obviously, and no one else, but that's the answer.
What's the makeup of the other people on the board? Like, is it mostly younger parents,
No.
kids, people with kids grown up?
You
or-
have access to the website.
It's like, did you make that page?
So the funny, you don't even, there's gonna be an update about that later.
So the most recent, we had appointed John Gary, who has grown up adult children, I think was our most recent appointment. I think there's maybe a little bit of a skew to people with slightly older kids, and then people with school-age kids as well. So there's kind of a
Doesn't say how
little
old
bit
these
of a
kids are,
diversity.
John.
I think is the youngest Pat Farrell.
Yeah.
And Pat,
They all look the same
Well,
age to me.
Good answer, Andy.
but Andy's coming off.
They're like right near each other in age, so there's a mixture of older kids, middle kids, younger kids. So between Pat and Aaron, they kind of have.
But Aaron's coming off.
Right, I know that, but, and then, Ryan, if you're talking about Ryan, his daughter is kind of in the younger group as well.
Yeah, so
there's a
Pat,
mix.
Pat is more, his kids are,
They're
My kids' age.
middle school.
yeah,
Yeah.
middle school,
Yeah.
and
So there is a motion
How long
on
is
the
this position
table.
for?
3 years, 3-year term. And do we have, when's the next time there'll be an opening?
Next year.
Next year there'll be another opening?
I think it's 2.
2 next year?
So,
Okay.
Is there another alternate spot? No.
yeah, we're filled there. We have 2. We have David Venter and Val Rogers.
So for anyone who doesn't get appointed tonight, hopefully we will see you again next year, because it sounds like there's going to be multiple openings over the next couple of years on this committee.
And like having to have these harder discussions is really exciting for me.
It's a good thing.
Because this has not been happening in this town for a very long time, and I like, this is challenging, and this is the way it's supposed to be. Like, this is the way that we get a town that we all wanna live in, right? So I just wanna point that out. Like, this is a good problem to have.
Right,
We're really-
especially for a
we're
board
really
that
lucky
used to have a lot of
this.
quorum problems, it sounds like, and it sounds like that's gotten a lot better in the recent years. So that's a good step forward. Okay, so we have a motion on the table for Ryan. I will second it. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye. I see 4, and all in opposed? Or abstain?
I'll abstain.
Abstain? Okay. All right, so we're going to appoint Ryan. We're anticipating 2 openings next year, and there are 2 applicants that were not chosen tonight, so I very much hope that they will reapply, because like I said, we are very thankful for everyone who's willing to step up.
What was it 4, 1
4 and
4,
1
0,
abstain.
1.
Yep. Thank you so much for coming and spending your time with us tonight, and we look forward to moving forward. All right.
Thank you as always.
Thank you. All right. We had the conservation pickpocket dam on the agenda, then we were gonna pause it, and then we obviously had some very strong feelings expressed during public comment. Would the board like to kind of re-up this issue now, tonight? Seems like that would be a good idea, okay? And just to be clear, I felt like maybe some of the comments were a little bit directed towards me because I was a bit hesitant last week. I'm not at all opposed to sending this letter. I am 100%. I just wanted to sort of clarify exactly what we were asking Exeter to do and who we were asking to be involved. And actually, I do agree with the idea, and maybe I wasn't thinking of it that way in my head, of separating out the legal standing from just our position as a town. I think they are interwoven, like I don't think you can 100% separate them. But I have no opposition. I just wanted us to clarify when we say Brentwood with a capital B, who we were really talking about and who we were asking to be involved.
I did edit that letter slightly.
Yes, I had some edits as well.
And I didn't take away that you were against it, I just
Right. Yeah,
took
not
away
at
that
all.
you wanted to clarify what Brentwood meant.
Right.
My comments were not, just to be clear.
Oh, no, I know.
My comments were like, my position is,
Yeah, no, what I heard from the spans was a little bit of frustration at thinking maybe that we weren't going to step up and write this letter. And so just to clarify that that was not our intention and that we fully intend to send a letter. And we have already sent one, so this would be our second letter.
So in the last paragraph, because I know there was concern about, representatives.
Right.
I said, that second sentence, stakeholders from Brentwood, i.e. conservation and select board chairs. And then further down, if the grant is awarded to Exeter, those stakeholders or their designees would like to be an integral part of any deliberation process. So just to give a little more
I
definition.
think that gives a little clarity about it being the select board and conservation and potential landowners, right? We'd also talked about whether SELT would be on that list last week. I don't know if anybody, we don't necessarily need to spell it out. If you say stakeholders, that can be a little, a little bit of a broader term.
I actually sent that over to the conservation chair, but I
Yep.
can forward that over to you.
One thing I was thinking is the third paragraph about that we had initially requested collaboration and it hasn't been forthcoming. I would prefer to strike that paragraph. I think we did ask them to keep us apprised of what was going on, and they have done that. They have let Karen know whenever there was going to be a meeting, when the draft plan was coming out. I mean, they've been pretty, so I don't want it to be adversarial. And if the board is not opposed to it, I think potentially just striking that two sentence paragraph might have a better collaborative tone for our letter, but I don't know how people feel about that.
On that note, at the end of the first paragraph where it says additional facts and concerns have come to light, what's the citation on that? Just
It's the,
feeling?
it's when we sent our first letter, the feasibility study was ongoing.
Okay.
Now the feasibility study has been released and has made clear the significant impact on Brentwood. That was just a theoretical when we had the initial conversations. It's now in
So
writing by
the
VHB.
The next sentence says it has become clear that the potential damage to properties in Brentwood due to the dam removal will be more significant, as noted in the file, more significant compared to what?
Than what was even suspected before that report came out, I think is what that sentence is implying. But we could wordsmith it a little bit if that's confusing.
I guess
So to strike additional facts and concerns have come to light. So do February 20th, 2024, and then say it has become clear that potential damage to properties in Brentwood due to dam removal will be significant,
yes.
as noted.
Sure, yeah.
Which
I mean, I think we just want to be factual, and
I
that's
just
all.
want to be
Take out the
factual. I'm
emotion.
trying to keep it, keep the emotion, because clearly people feel emotion about this, which
Of course
is
they do.
fine.
I mean, this is a huge thing.
Instead of striking that whole, that next to last paragraph,
Yeah.
can say, requested a collaborative approach to Brentwood and its residents, and that should be maintained instead of saying that has not been.
Yeah, I think that has not been forthcoming. It's not quite fair.
Yeah, I mean, can we say, and
They've done well so far, and you would like to see that continue, or something like?
yeah, or, and that should continue, or that should be
Yeah,
maintained,
we'd
or
like to see
something.
that continue and increase or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anyone know if they did any studies like this before they removed the Great Dam?
I think so.
So we could compare what their projections were to what actually happened?
I mean, I think they went through a similar process. It just wasn't, this is a little bit more rushed because of the grant that they were going for, I think.
So during the conservation meeting, Bruce Stevens said he followed the Great Dam at length, and there was like 4 or 5 public sessions. It took them like over a year to get all the studies done and make everything. But even during that time, the Pickpocket Dam had come up as a future issue. So
this is.
But I think that was a longer process.
Yes.
This got sort of shortened by the
Absolutely, I'm not talking
application.
about the length, I'm talking about like this, so.
Oh, projections versus
I don't know if
actuality.
anyone's actually looked at the study. They actually have projections about like
Oh, yeah.
how this will impact the
Yeah.
water levels.
Yes, very specific
And so I'm
projections.
curious to know how these projections match up to a project that's already happened. If there was a similar thing, we can say, oh,
right.
how worried do we need to be about this?
I think the sense that I got is that everyone was expecting it to be pretty bad, and then when they read it and it was pretty bad, that seemed to make sense. But I hear your point that we might have some data in terms of like, with the Great Dam, it was projected that the river was gonna shrink by X%, and it actually did shrink by X%. So these people are pretty good at making these predictions.
Right, I guess that's kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard anyone from our conservation committee or other groups question whether these predictions seem to make sense, and because it sort of goes back to how the river used to be, which there's some data on that from way back when cows could walk across the river.
Well,
So, you know, so there's some old data that if you return the river back to how it was, that, you know, that these predictions are probably fairly accurate. But yeah, we could certainly look into
yeah,
how
I mean,
accurate those were.
they're predicting no less than 5 feet of depth the entire way from Hague to Gross. So that's, I feel like you can kind of get 5 feet of water.
No less or no more.
I don't know.
From, you said from Hague to Cross,
Yes.
Yes.
so you're saying the impact is lessened?
The impact is lessened the further up you go from the river, from the dam. So by the time you get to Hague, there's no difference.
That's okay.
Which is, I think, kind of what they had said, that it would be, the impact would be up to Hague. But like, whatever it is, 3 miles or so, I think it's like about 3 point something miles.
Sure.
Yep. And I think some of those details, like, are maybe not relevant to this
No,
letter, but
I
to if
just
we're,
wanna,
you know,
it's,
the background
I understand
conversations.
that it's emotional for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I wanna be respectful and clear about what our concerns are and that they're based in fact.
Yeah.
And we like that they've been working with us, and please keep working with us and don't just shut us down.
Exactly. Okay, I think that's reasonable to leave that and just change that, you know, that we appreciate their efforts they've made to reach out to us and hope that, to see those increase as the process goes forward.
Could we, could the Conservation Commission start posting stuff about when we get notice of those meetings? Could they start posting about it on the website?
Of course. Yeah, we've been announcing it at our meetings when there was upcoming happenings in Exeter.
So that would
I
just
think
be
they
another
probably
way for
talked about
people
it
to-
at their meetings as well, but we could, I think we might have posted, I know it was posted on social media and Facebook. I don't remember if it was on the official town website or not, the last
think
time
it
there was a
was-
meeting.
I think it was just shared on Facebook.
Just shared, yeah, by word of mouth, because there are a lot of interested people. All right, so what I'm hearing is a few little wordsmithing and modifying that last paragraph to kind of clarify a little bit who the stakeholders are, which I think could be a select board representative. I don't think it necessarily has to be myself as chair. I think it could be any of us. A conservation committee representative, you know, interested landowners, et cetera. And any other changes or additions people would want to see before we move forward with this.
Sounds appropriate.
I think it might be worth adding something at the end saying that we recognize that you do not have to include us, but we appreciate.
I think that's sort of like
One
accepted.
demonstration of gratitude is good.
I think that's an
Just one thank you is enough
accepted,
thank
I
yous.
think that's an accepted truth that we all accept, that we
Okay.
do not own that dam.
Okay.
And that we appreciate that they have been roping us in. In terms of the legal question, I still think that is a really important question if this got to the point where we ever wanted to take further steps. But I do appreciate the feedback that they are related but slightly separate issues. Are we okay with Karen doing that little bit of wordsmithing and then sending it? Or would this group like to see the finalized, spiffed up version next week before sending it?
Or if you could circulate it around, we could probably.
Well, you can't really have a meeting outside of a meeting. Violates quorum.
Can you send it to all of us individually to get feedback?
I cannot,
No?
because once I send it to a quorum, it's a public document.
Right.
Even if you send it individually?
Yes.
You've all received it.
Can't meet outside of the meeting. So we can either approve it as amended, or we can ask Karen to bring the finalized version back next week. What would the preference be?
I'm personally comfortable with it getting out the door.
I'll second that.
Okay, so I have a motion for Karen to send it after the amendment's made.
We can call that a motion.
Okay, I'm gonna call that a motion. He seconded it, so he thought it was a motion.
I heard.
All
I called
right.
it a motion.
So we have a motion and a second to have Karen do the changes we discussed and send over, probably signed by you, because I know you signed the last one. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that's unanimous, and we will get that sent. And the stands left, but I can shoot Robert a quick email and just let him know that we did decide to move forward with that. I think they will be happy to hear that.
Are you allowed to send us a copy?
Yes? You
Just don't
can't tell me.
respond.
You just
Don't
can't tell me
reply
what you think
all.
of it.
all.
Don't reply all, that violates quorum. All right, so that comes to the end of our discussion action items. We'll move on to regular business, and as usual, we'll start with Karen to see what she's got for us.
There is $279,000 in the capital reserve fund for highway vehicles and related equipment. Mr. Robinson would like to purchase a new Western Star 49X diesel truck for a price of $274,000.
Oh, so it's not this one then?
274,910.
Oh, he
is
found
his-
another one.
Well, the only difference is that he is purchasing the truck without a plow on it because he doesn't have enough money for the plow. So the plow is an additional $89.86. So he can remove.
So just to clarify what happened here. There was potentially a slight miscommunication on timing about when Wayne wanted to buy his next truck. So when we added 150,000 and the voters approved that this year, it was just shy of what was needed to actually purchase said truck, because we did not think he wanted to buy it right away, but he in fact did. So Karen and I talked about this offline because he literally handed me this at the end of town meeting. I love Wayne. He's like, here it is. My thought is, I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to buy a plow truck without a plow on it. So given that we are going to be about $9,000 short.
9 or 90?
9.
I would like the board to consider using ARPA to make up the difference. I think I interpreted that $150,000 vote by the public as definite permission for us to move forward with the purchase of these trucks. It's just that account is slightly shy of what is required. So that it would be my suggestion rather than have him buy a plow truck without a plow on it. But that's just my 2 cents. Unless there's another place we could scrounge that money from, which I'm assuming.
Where did you say? I missed what you said.
ARPA.
From ARPA. Because all of our ARPA has to be pledged by the end of this calendar year.
This is just my 2 cents.
Yeah,
I'm not
please.
opposed in the least to this. I would like to see before, this is just, again, I'll vote on it, if we have to vote on it tonight. I would prefer to see kind of doesn't have to be super comprehensive, like a substantive plan of where are we exactly with our trucks and
So
where are we going?
hypothetically, that's already happened,
Right,
which
it's
is
in
why
the
this
CIP.
is confusing.
I think this was a small flub, a small monetary flub. The warrant should have been for 160,000, not 150,000.
No, so I'm pretty sure on the capital improvement plan, he said he didn't need another truck for,
This year. So his plan in the capital improvement plan was to purchase 3 trucks over 6 years.
Right.
So this would provide, so 150,000 over the course of those 6 years would be enough money to be able to purchase those 3 trucks.
right, but then I think we figured out at the capital improvement plan meeting that by the time you get to the end of those trucks, it's time to buy new trucks again. So just buy a new truck every 2 years.
This is where I'm a little bit apprehensive.
Right.
And why I wanna see like a plan.
No, I'm telling you, that is the plan.
So
That's a
when,
Why is that a problem?
Because I don't feel like it's really been laid out, and if we're always talking about trucks.
Yeah.
Like, it's always coming up, and
But-
that's why I'm just like,
That's literally what we did at the capital improvements meeting, though. We figured out that he said he needs the trucks last for about 10 years. He needs 5 of them. So every 2 years you buy a new truck. Right?
right.
in the perfect world, yes, this is not
Yeah.
big.
So can I pause for 1 second? I think the elephant in the room here is that this board has not in detail reviewed the capital improvement plan, and we always planned to, but we decided to wait till after budget season. So we got past budget season, we got through town meeting. So to your point, I think it's time for this new board, now that Letty is seated, to look at the CIP and have these exact discussions and really decide, does this fit with the master plan on the CIP? Because it sounds like maybe there's a little disjointed when this truck was going to be purchased on the
So-
CIP.
I have the CIP up, and it says he wants to replace the 2011 truck in 2025, and then replace the 2006 truck in 2026, and then purchase a 6-wheel dump truck in 2029. So, yes, it was over 6 years.
But they were kind of compressed together.
6 years, but there's 2 back-to-back, which the fund won't have the money to.
How much do we have in ARPA?
I can pull it. There's over 100 that's
It's over 100.
Was there ever any kind of, like, inspection of these trucks that we're replacing to make sure that they need to be replaced and that the mileage on them is such that, they need replacing at this point? I mean, I know Wayne has, wants to improve the fleet, and I get that. I
Did you
wanna-
just say 2006?
The first one is a 2011 he wants to replace, the second one is a 2006, according to the CIP.
Old truck.
But we also, I don't know how long we've actually had them. If
We
get
bought
them new.
We've, since I've been on the board, we've never
Only
bought
bought
a used
new.
truck.
So maybe,
Is this a new one?
we need to this would be new, yes. So maybe we need to understand why that 2025 truck has been moved to 2024. I feel like that is maybe the part I'm not understanding. Do
And then
you,
if trucks need to be replaced every 10 years, but we're replacing,
right, we wouldn't have the money to buy another truck next year. So that CIP is, unless we decide to use ARPA or other funds, this CIP is not really gonna, it doesn't match the warrant structure that we have
that
in place.
2006, that's not 10 years. But that's
It'll
kind
be
of where.
20 years.
It's a lot more than,
That's where-
Because it was working.
because it was
So
still working,
there
I
has-
think.
Do you want me to call Wayne?
No.
No,
No, not
I
necessarily.
think
No,
there's
because
been
we
a
don't have to decide
history
this tonight either.
Of run it till it dies,
Yeah,
like with the fire department radios, right? Like they were fine
Yeah.
until they weren't.
until they all broke.
Yes.
And you couldn't replace them.
The only problem with a plow truck is if you run it till it dies, and it dies in
You're in big.
June,
I
and
think
you
that's
need
her
it to
point.
plow the
Yes.
snow,
Yeah,
and
Yes.
Yeah. So I think this ties into a bigger conversation about the CIP has a really, really important purpose, and this board was very much in favor of having a really good CIP, but we have not yet looked at that CIP or discussed it in detail, which I think that we should, because we have, how much ARPA to?
$123,000.
$123,000 of ARPA that we have to pledge by the end of this year. This board has to make those decisions, and I think we could probably only really do that by using the CIP. And so I wonder if we should stick a pin in this particular issue until we kind of tie that into the bigger picture CIP/ARPA/other funding sources discussion that we had always intended to have once we kind of got through the budget season. Would anybody be opposed to that?
I like it.
You like it? John likes it? Yeah?
Feel way more comfortable with that.
Yeah, because that was the point of the CIP, so that we don't have these surprises. And then maybe we can have Wayne speak to why a truck that was planned to be purchased in 2025 was getting moved up. I think it maybe was just because he was worried about the price going up significantly.
He
but
is, he
there
said it
may
would,
be something else.
he's anticipating it going up $40,000 in 2025.
So that may be the main or only reason why he wanted to push it forward.
But then could we wait till 26 for the next one?
Well, we can't, I mean, we won't have, even if we use all of ARPA, I guess we would maybe just barely, if we used every dollar of ARPA plus depending what we went to the voters for, we could. But that's not what we want to do.
But that's why I would like to see more than just that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I wanna see what is our current fleet? What is
Yeah.
the replacement plan?
Right.
Where do we need to be in 10 years? Like,
Right,
do we
which is
need
what
to
the
have
CIP
that
is.
additional, that,
Right.
it
So-
is,
So
it
the
is.
fifth truck is an additional truck. We currently only have 4.
Correct.
Sometimes we don't have drivers for all of them, but that's a separate
Sometimes,
problem.
and sometimes they don't turn on.
Right,
Also,
that has been a problem.
That's what I'm
Yes.
saying, like,
Yes.
it-
but that was a truck planned in 2029, was the fifth truck.
To add one.
Yes.
I think that
In
was
5
planned,
years.
if I recall correctly, that was when they thought that River Run would be like right 3 years
Mhm.
is typically when we would take those roads over.
Right, gotcha.
But to both your point over there, we probably should see a maintenance breakdown, what we're spending into the
Right.
truck,
Right,
how old they are, what the mileage is,
Right.
and, if we're putting more money into them than,
Yeah.
or if they just don't work, then.
Yeah, I mean, these are
That's
big,
another
this is
It's a
a
big
big
purchase,
expense, like,
yeah.
we should probably, just to be responsible
Yeah.
on this, we should.
And
really-
back to my point of the 10,000, now we're talking 200,000, we probably should have more than just a printout from Carfax.
So, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, I think so, wrapping this
But
into a
yes.
bigger CIP discussion, I think would be helpful. And then just clarifying with Wayne if that was the only reason to push it up, was just because of concern about cost increases, which I think potentially was the case.
So timing wise, reviewing the CIP plan with the planning board, asking Glenn to probably be present for that
I think that would
is
make
going
sense.
to be a pretty time intensive conversation.
I have sorry, just really quickly, why the planning board?
Well, the planning board is the one that puts that together, and they're the ones that
So there was-
adopt that plan.
Yes, they adopted it, but there was a subcommittee that put it together.
Yeah.
Um,
Who's the chair of that subcommittee?
I wanna say Jack.
I'm gonna say Jack too.
Yeah, he was.
So maybe just having him
Oh, that's right.
come and speak to it.
I was.
I don't think we need a
What
joint
is-
meeting between all of planning board and all of select board. to
Because I think we
discuss it.
can review it on our own and then ask questions of,
I think Jack,
Well,
probably
there
having
should be
Glenn
minutes from all
there
those
would be
meetings
helpful.
too, right?
yeah. I agree.
Yeah, Jack and Glenn.
was very integral.
Yep. To your point, that could be a significant discussion. We might wanna have an additional
Meeting in April.
April does have 5 weeks, and because we would go onto the summer schedule, traditionally, we would only have meetings on the 1st and 3rd.
And both of those meetings will
Tuesdays.
already have a heavy agenda. So 4.2 is the newsletter, and 4.16 is the DOT presentation for the RSA on South Road.
Why
Say
would
that again,
416
416?
Why would,
What was the
They
date
have
on that?
requested to be on.
416, did you say?
4.16 is the South Road.
What did you say? DOT?
The road safety
DOT
audit.
wants to make a presentation to the board for the road safety audit.
Are we gonna do that at the,
At the
at the
BRC.
rec?
So that would be on the 16th.
Yes.
So could we,
Could think about adding a meeting on the 30th if we wanted, which would be the 5th.
can we not do the 30th?
You can.
The
Oh, that's.
week prior school vacation week, which is generally hard. It will be hard for me since I'll be at Disneyland with my 5-year-old nephews. It's their
Ooh,
birthday.
That was so fun.
So
Could we do the 9th?
potentially,
Or we can-
yep, we could potentially if that worked for people. We could do it at the 2nd. What else do we have on the
Just that
2nd?
one
Oh,
thing.
we could put on the 2nd then.
There's no reason why we have to go in the summer schedule in April. We could meet
Yeah, we don't have
the
to.
2nd, the 9th, and the 16th.
We could do that too.
Any of those work for me.
Okay, what do you guys want to do? So we could try to have it next week on the 2nd. Or we could add a meeting on the 9th. What does everybody like to do?
So,
Do we have any other major agenda items next week?
I don't believe so. So how about you and I discuss what we have potentially on the agenda for the 2nd, and then you can decide whether
Okay.
you want to have an additional meeting or whether you think
Okay.
it will fit on the 2nd.
Would anybody be opposed to us adding a meeting on the 9th? No?
It's my birthday.
Oh, so we'll have to bring birthday cards for cake for Paul. Okay, all right. Okay, so we will let you know, Karen and I will review the agenda and see where we can fit that in and see when Jack and Glenn have availability to come talk with us about that. Great, I think that's an important conversation for this board to have.
depending on how important Glenn is to that, might determine, like, because he works for other towns, I don't know if he's
Yep.
available on Tuesdays.
Yep. We will certainly check with him and we'll let you
Zoom
guys know.
in.
Okay, great, perfect. All right, what else you got for us?
That is all.
That is all, okay. We will move over to Andy. Any committee updates or other board business?
I have none.
Okay, John?
Rec tomorrow at 6:30 at the PRC, and then, we don't have an economic development meeting currently scheduled, our last one. We didn't have a quorum, unfortunately, so I will keep you all updated with that schedule. We're gonna try to get on a regular schedule.
Do we still have the Bring It to Brentwood sign somewhere, and/or do we want to put it back out as the weather gets nicer?
I think that that's something that we can
Econ
consider.
development can
Yeah, I would wanna, me, again, just speaking for myself on that, I think my 2 cents would be making sure that there would be kind of a purpose behind putting it back out.
Right.
And, I think that we have some concepts that we can pursue that, would fit them, fit that bill, but, I don't think that we have, as an economic development committee, committed to pursuit of any of
Gotcha.
those specific action items.
All right, sounds good.
I think to be clear, we just had an election, so, and, we wanted to make sure that before I didn't wanna take additional steps.
Sure, sure, okay, sounds good. Paul?
Letty handled my planning board, which,
It was
Oh,
fun, I
right.
wanna do it.
and apparently wants to do the.
I knew you would like planning board. I was like, I
know what
knew
you guys
it.
are talking about, now I get it.
I knew you would like it.
Which I'm okay with. I mean, I'm gonna be on conservation. Makes me a little unbalanced, I think, in terms of not doing maybe as much, so I
I think Letty would have to give something up, because I think she had 2 or 3 things.
I had, so
I
that
could
was
stay
my
on joint
question.
loss.
Well, that was
Like,
one question I
easy.
had. Some of the things I'm on, I don't know if I'm on as a select board human or just myself. Cause I was pretty on.
Some of them you're on as yourself, like
Right.
like the building committee.
Yep.
So if you wanted to step off of that, you could.
But we should have a select board rep on.
I'm already on that.
Okay.
Yep.
What about communications?
Communications, you were an appointed
As herself.
member as yourself.
Okay.
So you could step down from that and we could appoint someone else.
Russ was
kinda-
advisory, he didn't
Yeah, he
attend
just
every
would
meeting.
go sometimes, which is what we kind of decided to continue to do for communications and for E&E. So some of that's up to you to decide.
But if she stepped off of it, that, we would have to
You'd
take
have to fill.
applications.
Is there anything that
Yes,
you're not on?
yes.
DBA.
Oh,
Which we decided not to put a select board
Right.
member on.
And then joint loss and emergency management, between the two of them will
Well,
meet
actually,
7 times
that's
now.
pretty
Good for you
minimal.
Because your office is right here in town, right? So you can, those are daytime meetings, right? That was the reason why those.
Yes, the emergency management is definitely daytime for like the Seabrook, but that's just like once or twice a year there's a meeting for that?
I think there's 3, right, because there's 2
Three.
practice and 1 graded drill, and the
Okay.
graded
But that's
drill
on a
is,
2-year cycle.
yeah.
So,
And we just had it last year, didn't we? Because didn't Russ go to
the
it?
final,
And the
graded
graded
drill
drill is
is-
coming up next Wednesday, the 3rd.
yes, next week.
Daphne will tell you what to do.
Great.
I can stay on joint loss. I mean, I've been on that for 2 years. It's fine. It's only meets quarterly. It's not a huge deal. I
Or
could be
15,
okay.
yeah.
Usually it had been on a day when I could go, but then a few times I couldn't just because of conflicts. But that would be okay. I mean, if you want to try planning board, as long as Paul's okay with it.
Yeah,
Will you be the backup though? We'll just switch.
oh, yeah.
Is that a
Right.
motion, somebody?
Can I make a motion?
You can make a motion to have,
I make a motion to switch Paul and I's roles where I will be the primary planning board rep for the select board and he will be the secondary.
the backup.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sounds good. And we can always change these things up over time if it's not
Oh,
working for people.
Absolutely.
All right.
I am not afraid of.
Did you have any updates for the board based on that meeting?
Yes, so they elected Kristen as the chair and Steph as the vice chair. They appointed Mark as an alternate. And then they talked a little bit about a new business that's going in on 125. It's gonna be a race car
Go-kart.
parts track.
Hobby tracks,
Yeah.
Hobby tracks. I think it's remote controlled
yes.
track, actually.
Cool.
They got a draft of the land use regulation audit, which is the thing that they had the grant for. Just kind of analyzing what current zoning ordinances we have.
The
and-
housing grant?
Yep, kind of
Yep.
gaps where they think that they could make for some recommendations, kind of the next steps that they think that planning board should look into changing. And then
Is there gonna be any kind of public presentation or discussion of the findings of that?
yes, I think once it's finalized, they will publish the finalized
Cool.
version.
Cool, okay.
None of the findings are particularly surprising, I think. I can just summarize them. We need a workforce housing ordinance because we're currently out of compliance because we don't have one. There is missing middle housing in Brentwood, which we know everything's really expensive here. And Brentwood should consider changing the accessory accessory dwelling unit ordinance. So,
What?
I don't,
Detached, probably.
I don't.
Anything other than it is?
Yeah.
So right now it's,
We've probably
tried that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, detached.
You
would
tried
make
your tiny
sense.
homes one time, right?
Didn't call it that.
Oh, sorry. The non-tiny homes.
this is just the key findings section. This document is like 80 pages long, so.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And then for communications, we're still working on the AV stuff. Drilled some more holes the other day. There was a question about whether or not we have Comcast right now.
Yes.
Could we get a copy of what speeds they're supposed to be providing to us, so we can compare it to what speeds we're getting?
That
and-
has been an ongoing concern.
It's just a question. And then, the goal plan is to officially hand off ownership of the website, starting in June with transitioning through August. So by September, various departments and committees will own their parts of the website, and the communications committee won't be in charge of that anymore. And then I have questions not related to a board.
One more thing on communications, there was an email that just came across to all of us about some suggestions for like some security and like little safety devices and surge protectors. Is that gonna come to the board in an official fashion to be acted upon? I wasn't really clear, I don't know if you were really clear what the next steps was from that email.
I don't think the price points, from what I remember, will require further action from the board. I think it's just like a couple of $100s.
So that's something you could just handle through your office? Okay, okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Great, perfect.
Can we go back to the website for a second?
Yeah.
Is there a way, and I thought this was gonna happen, that under all the people to put their term expiration date?
That
Oh, that's a great
should
idea.
already be
Countdown
there.
The countdown
Well,
clock?
well, I
It
was-
turns red when your
So
term is up.
I
that,
think the only one that was there is the Board of Selectmen, everybody else doesn't have a expiration date.
tell me more, show me, so,
I think if they're elected, they do have a term. I think if they are appointed,
they have a term.
they do have a term.
So if you see a place where that information isn't there, you should just.
Maybe I should go someplace else, 'cause
Like
Or you
where I
should just tell us,
was,
because
wasn't there.
we can't proofread everything.
One like energy and efficiency doesn't have terms because they didn't have terms when they were appointed.
So I was just on this page, and,
What is this page?
That looks like the directory listing.
it is town directory.
Okay, so if you go into the individual boards,
They're there.
at the bottom where it shows members, there's a picture of most people.
Okay.
And then if they have a position, if they're elected or appointed, and when their term expires.
Okay, which makes sense, that it might not necessarily be in the
I don't
directory
know.
page. Oh, yeah, term expires,
I
okay.
don't know if we have control over which fields show up in the directory, but I can.
But if it's a directory, that's, you know, as long as you have it on this page with the photos.
It's just neat there, that's all.
Yeah,
I can find out.
Neat as in organized, not neat as in cool.
I'm
kinda like, well, it's kinda,
Is it
it's
not
both. Well, it's kinda like in the town report where you can quickly see
Right.
that on just like a 3-page view. I hear what you're saying, yeah.
Um,
John's like, okay, it's 8 o'clock. We're getting a little
anything else
slap
about the
happy.
website before I ask my other questions?
No, go ahead.
So this, I had asked you about this when I was on the budget committee. How much longer do you have to use this software for? And is there anything we can do to help you get the new software sooner?
We can start an RFP process, yes. I was
Okay.
just waiting for everything else to sort of simmer down.
And can you remind us of the history? We've been wanting to move to new software for a
For
while.
a long time, yes.
Like many, many years?
So this software is probably 30 to 40 years old.
It
Yes.
looks like it, yes.
When she exports to Excel, it
Okay.
just dumps everything
Give that
in
woman
one
some water.
cell.
Yes.
Like it literally just saves it as a Microsoft 95 document,
A what?
like an Excel 95, 97 document.
Okay, so time to come into the 2020s?
Dinosaur.
Yep, and I know at the budget committee, we had talked about maybe a newer software would have more reporting options. that
Sure.
would make
Life
everything
easier.
easier for everybody. so we could run a report that says, how much did we spend on vehicle maintenance?
And what kind of, like, just ballpark price range would we be talking about for a new software if we were to go out to?
I guess it depends how many modules we would be looking at. So we would be looking at fund accounting. It would need to tie into cash receipts, disbursements, and AP to start. Probably tax so that we could show those receivables. So we have money in a capital reserve fund already started. It would just be a matter of sort of pricing it out, see what other towns are using, doing an RFP, doing some demos.
I know that's
What
work for you, but the
RFP
goal is.
I mean, what capital reserve fund is already set up for that?
We have a capital reserve fund for software.
Oh, the software one.
It's completely
Okay.
separate for,
Yep.
it's completely separate than the IT hardware one.
Yep, okay, perfect.
What do you need from us to make it happen?
I need more time.
Can't give you that.
Is what I need.
Is there an optimal time if you were gonna do a software switch? So obviously, we just got through town meeting, we just got our budget approved. What's the optimal time to do a switch over that causes the least disruption and chaos? Obviously, you don't wanna do it during budget season, like, right, but if we
Ultimately, it would be kind of right about
spring into the
now,
early summer.
because it would be before tax bills go out
Okay.
and before, like the revale, all of our assessment updates are done, tax bills are not going out yet, and
Yep.
budget season is not happening.
Right. So if we say, so tax bills go out what, June?
They go out in May.
May, so that's 2 months, is that enough time or not really?
That is not enough time if we're gonna do a formal RFP process and do it correctly.
Yeah. So do we,
After the tax bills go out.
Well, can we do the RFP now so that after the tax bills go out, we're ready to?
I mean, it's gonna take a while to start exploring what our options are and what's a viable use and how everything ties together, right?
Right.
I mean, right now we have BMSI, they have been purchased by G-Works, we've already found, their customer service is just not what it used to be, it's much different now. We used to be able to just call one person, she'd answer the phone, and she was just our one go-to all of the time. It's not that way anymore. So, we feel the pains of having to move, but it's just finding the time to be able to dedicate just to that project,
Yep.
to make sure we do it right.
okay. So, do you need a vote from us or just generalized support to start that process and just kind of see what happens with the understanding that there's certain, time, that it'll take time?
I guess we just need to I need to lay out all of the things, all of the stuff on my plate right now,
Yep.
and then we need to prioritize some things. Like,
Okay.
there's a lot on my plate now that is very time intensive, and I just don't have it to be able to dedicate to a project like that.
Yep.
So we need to offload some other things to be able to start looking at something like this.
Okay.
Or we hire more help, to be able to divvy up those tasks.
Once again, we are skeleton staffed.
Right.
We are,
And we
and
did
then-
down staff by one, like 2 years ago.
Yes.
Because we were getting by with one less staff member because we outsourced some of our
Bank
bank
reconciliations.
reconciliation.
If we brought that back in, could we?
I mean, that's $18,000 that's budgeted for that role, so we could,
Do we have enough accounting work, just straight accounting, that it makes sense to have a person that just does that, so you don't have to?
I mean, it would make sense to do that, but we don't have the need to be able to fill a full-time position with just accounting work.
Which is part of the reason we outsourced it, right? Because it wasn't really a full-time job. Okay.
Is it a half-time, like, is there another half-time position that we could? Like, the fact that this is this, and you have so much to do that you can't even make this better, feels problematic.
Is this something that the communications committee, like Josh, he seems like really technical, is this like software that you could look at?
I think the problem with something like that, I think Josh, technically, I think he could make very good recommendations, but he's not boots on the ground enough or familiar enough with what we have to do day to day to be able to make a solid recommendation. Like, even with the website, it is beautiful. It functions fantastically on the resident side. It doesn't translate as easily on our back end side as I would have thought it would be. I think it's a complete success on the outside. I think there are some other kinks that we would have recognized if we had been more involved in that process. And that's just on us, right? We
It's
should
not
have.
on you, it's the
Well,
fact
that
that we
was-
are skeleton staff,
that
and
was
you don't
yeah.
have.
We outsourced it because you couldn't have brought us a new website. It would, you didn't have the bandwidth to do that. Right. So big picture, what, as our town administrator, do you think we need to prioritize? Do we need to prioritize delegating stuff off of you? Do we need to prioritize looking at adding to your team and reversing the downsizing we did a couple years ago during the pandemic? What do you think would make the most sense to move forward? Because clearly one of the goals is to update the accounting software, but if you're feeling like things are imbalanced and the website has added extra work, then what would you like to see happen as our town administrator?
I think initially, Tamara, Jillian, and I were gonna have a meeting to see how we can, right now in the short term, balance our plates. Tamara's feeling a little overwhelmed, I was feeling a little overwhelmed, so what can we offload to Jillian that sort of makes sense?
Okay.
Right, that is not a big training, time-intensive process, that she can just help us out a little bit. But I think long-term, I think we're moving in that direction where we just need more staff hours.
Okay.
But then that brings in additional problems, right? We don't have an office space for a new staff person. We don't have, so it's just a lot of other, and then how do you fill that position to make it successful you can't bring in a finance director at 20 hours a week.
Right.
Or someone that can fill that specific subset of skills without it being full-time employment, right? I mean, the
Right.
skill set that you're gonna get they don't line up with the pay and the skill set that you require for that kind of a position. So it's just sort of figuring out how you would piece it and be able to market it to make it attractive.
Okay. When we had the
And that's also a
additional-
conversation we need to have with Tamara,
Yes.
what are your long-term professional goals and where,
Yep.
where do we wanna go?
Right. When we had that additional employee, where was that person physically housed in the building?
They shared an office with Joyce.
Okay.
But then that poses a separate problem because, like on Fridays, when they were the only person in the office, you're not sending that person in the back hall across from the bathroom for customer service.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense. That person can't functionally provide customer service to the assessing office and welfare office when they're all the way across the building.
Right. Okay. So what I'm hearing is you'd like to have some offline discussions with your team?
Yes.
And do some brainstorming, and then maybe come back to us if you feel like you need us to help you move forward. Okay. Other thoughts from the board on this?
Yes, my thoughts are, I would just like to make ideally a collective statement of support for the town
Yeah.
staff and all that they do, and acknowledge.
They run the whole town.
An acknowledgement that they literally run the whole growing
Yep.
town where things are going really well, but at the same time, what that means is they're getting overwhelmed, as we've heard, and
Yep.
it's our job to make sure that they have what they need to run the town.
Well, my idea was to shut down the town one week, a quarter. Nobody's allowed to complain or give us anything additionally to do so we can catch up.
That would be one solution.
If everybody wants to play ball, that would be great.
Not sure that would.
Good luck.
That sounds like an interesting plan, Karen. Why don't you propose that to the board?
Like put pause on the world for a week.
I know.
Sounds great.
That would make things easier, right? All right, I think obviously we all echo. I think a lot of the residents in town really don't understand who really runs the town, which is these folks. And so do you feel comfortable kind of just starting those conversations and coming back to us, understanding that this board is very much in support, of you and your division and trying to make this work, and that we need software that's not from 40 years ago? That would be ideal.
It looks like it should be printed on that paper with holes in the sides.
It really
We
does.
just threw away a box
Or
tonight.
Was it in here?
Or the
Yeah,
purple
we
like
found that.
mimeograph stuff,
Yes.
right? Yeah, it could have been that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking of budgets and maybe hiring another person, I think that the select board should at least have bottom line numbers for every department before we start looking at individual departments line by line. So that we know what the bottom line number is, total, so we can see what the proposed increases are. So we don't have to go back and reopen budgets if we're like, oh, we got to the end, and now we wanna go back and cut a little here to get those numbers down.
We could certainly talk about that before budget season and it just would change the timing, because sometimes they roll into us and the later ones aren't done.
Why,
When-
though?
Don't know. Because I think that's how it's always been done, Letty.
So I don't believe that's how it's always been done.
Or at least that's how it's
And
been.
I feel, and that's why I'm bringing it up now, because if we say now that like all budgets need to be, like bottom line number budgets need to be to us by October 1st, then
That would make PD very happy because they're starting to annoy me with their budgets in July, and I told them to leave me alone until September.
When, like last year, we obviously didn't review them all because that would be a really, really long meeting, although we could talk about, compressing that schedule. What was the time spread about when final budgets were actually done? Were they all done by a certain date and we just didn't review them because it was too many for one meeting?
No, generally the department heads will have it done for the Tuesday prior to it
That's
being
kind of what I
presented
thought.
to you.
Yeah,
So
it was like rolling.
But if they're told in the summer, hey, we're gonna kick off budget season the Tuesday after Labor Day, we're gonna have a department head meeting that week, you have until the end of the month to prepare your budget, and you get the whole entire budget, and then you start individual presentations October 1.
yeah, I was
think
thinking
that's
that the
okay.
individual
Okay.
thing would go in the same schedule. It's just, it's hard to.
Yeah, you don't know the overall percentage change if you don't know the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we table this a bit and discuss it more this summer when we're kind of gearing up to do overall budgets? That's also when we start talking about like September-ish is when we make the decisions about COLA.
Oh yeah, because that
and
would be
all.
important.
Right,
in
we
terms
want,
of
and that was a
budget.
big change that we had made the past 2 years, was making those decisions very early on in the process, so maybe we could pull some of these other things.
But now
and-
I've said it out loud, so they won't be surprised.
Yeah, I think, we should continue to try to make the budget process more transparent, clearer,
Yes.
easier for everybody.
So, question about that, why are they bothering you about their budget?
Well, they're not, but some of the information that they need for their budgets it comes from this office, right?
Yeah.
They wanna know where we're going with staff ideas, where we think the board might be sitting with COLA merits. That also prompts that we'd have to do the personnel reviews earlier in the season.
Right.
So it just kicks off.
But I'm wondering if that could be another place where if there was another person who kind
And
of
those
did all those number things for you, you could maybe offload that. I'm just trying to count all
It's because she engages with us so much, I think that's gonna be, they're always gonna go to her for that kind of guy.
So it's
And
not so
PD's
much
on that
budgetary.
cycle because he came from an SB2 town where they
Mm.
start
Right.
budgets in July.
That's
So
true.
when he
Yeah,
came
so
here,
he's
he
used
was
to
like,
doing them
let's
earlier.
start budgets. And I was like, go back to your office.
Call me in 2 months.
So the difference is if we had a finance director, they would be going to the finance director
Right.
for those numbers. But
Right.
we don't employ a finance director, so they go
Right.
to Karen.
Right.
So I guess that's the question, is that if we are thinking about adding personnel, what kind
Which
of
is,
person
I think,
should
the
that be?
brainstorming they want to have offline about what's feasible, what makes sense,
I
how
think
many
if-
hours.
Finance director would be a shell shock to this town of
Yeah,
what it would cost.
That's a
Yeah.
6-figure role.
Okay.
yeah.
You get me better reporting software, and we'll find it,
Wow, Lenny's gonna go find you 6 figures.
right? Like,
Whew, she's promised, she's
we'll
making
cut
some
a-
promises
we'll cut 1,000
tonight.
here, 1,000 there.
I'm gonna also need a raise then because I don't make much more than that.
And the sad thing is, Letty, if you look at most town reports from other towns, they look exactly like that.
I know.
And it
So-
still hurts her soul.
But I feel the pain, because I felt it
Yeah.
during,
No,
budget season.
Yeah.
It was hard for me. That's why I asked
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of questions.
it's antiquated software, that's for sure.
I think Janice has
Yeah.
a question.
Janice?
Sorry, I just wanna, if things do start to think that it might be moving them closer to summer, that is our busiest time, that becomes very problematic for me.
I don't think it would be summer. I think it would be, right now we did our first budgets in like October, but we were doing them into like December. And I
Ours
think
were always
this
very
is
late.
discussing compressing that time frame somewhat. So I think this summer we can discuss that more
Well,
about
like the
what we'd like
review
to see.
process and stuff,
Yeah.
I've got everybody doing summer reading.
Yeah.
And that's a huge
Totally.
project for us. So just something to
Yeah.
consider
Yep.
because we have always appreciated having the later
Yep.
date to present.
Yep.
Not that I can't do it, but
Well, and it's
Well,
not that we
because
would
when they require
necessarily,
some-
I think to Letty's point, it's not that we would necessarily have to do everything much earlier, but that when we started doing budgets, it might be helpful to have that sort of running total. So it could still happen in October or something. It doesn't necessarily mean we need to move it to the summer. It's just we might adjust how we do it
and
a little bit.
operations wouldn't be a problem. It's payroll that
Yep.
becomes hard for me because that's
Sure.
the whole process.
Yeah, so I think we can talk about that more this summer when we're doing this sort of gear up to budget season discussions.
Well, and really, I mean, that process is most impactful to police, fire, highway, and myself. I mean, I prepare
Yep.
most of the budgets, but dollar-wise, it's police, fire, and highway.
Well, I think to Letty's point is, we've had years past where we're going along with the budget and then fire will come in and say, hey, I'm gonna ask
Yep.
for 2 full-time firefighters. and
Yep.
There's $100,000.
Yep.
Or $160,000 increase, whereas if we knew that up front,
Right.
we may not be so liberal with another
Similar.
department.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or just knowing what all of those.
Even if they're rough numbers within
Yeah.
Right.
50 grand of each other, 100 grand.
It's kind of that same concept as the CIP in terms of like just knowing what's coming. Yeah, okay. All right, I think these are a good idea. So it's nice having new people on the boards with like,
I have
who
one
have
more
BudCom
thing. I have
experience.
one more question.
So it's
Okay.
only 8:30.
That's fine. You, you should have.
Go ahead, Letty.
You should have zoomed in.
What's going on with the rec road?
It's being cut.
It's doing,
Clear.
they're doing it.
Okay. And I saw that there was some clearing up on the hill where the,
Yep.
possible.
They were doing trees, they were doing crane work.
Great.
It's done. Kip sent us
Also
a nice picture of a
acrobatics.
guy hanging from the sky this morning.
Great.
Awesome.
Anything specific on it, or?
I was just curious where that process was, like when will that road be open?
By summer.
Great.
Well before summer.
Safety check.
Yeah,
So
exciting.
all of the tree clearing was completed yesterday is what I understand, and then Mike Sanborn has been notified that that's ready to go, and we're waiting on him to just get going.
Awesome. Great. That's a pretty quick turnaround. Anything else? Okay, she's done. I don't think I have anything in particular, so unless anybody else has anything else? No?
Can I just give a quick update on the amphitheater, like 2 seconds?
Sure.
I just want to let you know, and it'll go out on social media, they're going to be working on the curbing next, which is going to continue to make our entrance be either the exit or the entrance, depending on the day and the moment. So we're going to ask people to be flexible with us, but just so that you guys know,
Okay.
things are in disarray, but we are really moving along.
I just drove through there the other day. It's made a lot of progress. Yeah, great. Awesome. Okay. Any other board business? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I will adjourn at 8:21.